Here is something that has boggled me about The Last Jedi for the past few days. It's been almost a week since this movie came out. Today is Wednesday, December... What the hell day is it? December 20th, 2017. And I've been trying to figure out how a movie that I saw in a packed theater, where I just sat in the front fucking row, where I heard applause and screaming of joy and cheers, has gotten this audience score on Rotten Tomatoes. Now, could it be that the people who did these Rotten Tomato reviews are hackers? Maybe. Are they just fucking idiots? That's another possibility. Oh yeah, we're condescending sack of shit. But maybe people don't like the core roots of Star Wars being challenged. We probably don't like the idea of a risky move done by a rebellion pilot costing a ton of lives, and that pilot being taken off of duty and being demoted. It might be hard for us to believe that a story involving Finn and Rose is something other than boring. While it's not really boring, it's showing us as audience members the sacrifices that these wars cause. That the people who are really suffering are the people on both sides. That when you think your ideology is so right and noble that you can start sacrificing men and women left and right, then what are you fucking really standing on at that point? That's what Leia sees after Poe Dameron's reckless assault. And while I've talked about that a little bit right now, let's get to the core issue of why everyone on the internet seems to be fucking pissed. Luke Skywalker. Luke wouldn't do this. Luke wouldn't do that. Luke would never try to kill his nephew out of fear. Luke would never go in exile and just want to die for fucking 30 years without a reason to keep on going. Luke would never do that. Luke would be this grand, powerful, badass motherfucker. Just the same person he was in Return of the Jedi. Well, recently, I did a Star Wars marathon with my friends. Obviously watching the specialized editions of the movies. I watched it with a person who had never seen Star Wars. Any of them. And watching these three movies, again, in the best quality you can get them in, obviously, I can safely say that Luke's character arc, I feel, is going to make more sense and be more fascinating when you watch these immediately before you watch Force Awakens and Last Jedi. Besides, we have a full other movie we're waiting for in this trilogy. Now, many people are saying, well, this is such a bad movie. It betrays everything I know about Luke Skywalker, the great legendary Luke Skywalker. Again, is it fucking with your meta sense of who Luke is? Even Luke himself in the movie scoffs at the idea that he could just do whatever the fuck he wanted. That the Jedi were righteous and right all along. But as I said in my review, when you get down to the history of the Jedi, and I really can't wait to cover this movie when a DVD release comes out so I can properly insert these clips to give you better context for these videos. When I watched The Last Jedi, I cried a bunch of times. Watching The Last Jedi felt like watching something like Ex Machina. A very hard sci-fi movie that really challenged you as a viewer. I felt that this movie worked well with its twists and turns, with playing it with your expectations, with going in directions that you never thought this movie would go in, as certain scenes were pre-established. Well, as we could see in The Last Jedi, there were twists and turns that we didn't expect to see after The Force Awakens. A great example of someone who's really hate-bashing this movie is Angry Joe. Now, I want to preface this before I rip into Angry Joe here. I am a fan of his content. I feel his reviews display how he genuinely feels about a movie or a game. I tend to view his reviews as a standard of whether or not I should buy or see a product. But I must say, when it comes to his analysis of The Last Jedi, especially this one point that just, honestly, I couldn't make it through the whole video. Because of this one point that just bothered the hell out of me. He's like, the Leia's Mary Poppins scene, as people are calling it. That Leia scene.
Leia floating out in space.
She died.
And then flying like Superman back inside the ship. Okay? This shocked me. I think they were trying to go for this miraculous Leia has powers of her own, which is canon accurate, right? In Return of the Jedi, it's referenced that she has a link with Luke, and she's Force sensitive. There is another, and that's cool, and I liked it. But the way they depicted it here was so ridiculous in the sense that the audience started laughing. There was a few, I was laughing.
You were.
Bit.
I was
like, what?
I was sitting a seat from him, and I hear him go, "What?" And he just starts laughing, and I was like, "That's how I felt."
She flies back into the ship like Superman. Not only that, but then she knocks on the door when she gets there.
Hey guys, I'm back.
Yeah, I didn't understand that. Like, if the bridge has been decompressed and there's no airlock there,
The air was immediately sucked out of her lungs. She's dead. The whole thing decompressed. She's dead. She froze to death. She's dead. The explosion brushed all of her body and shrapnel went everywhere. She's dead. And she's got pieces in her body everywhere. She's dead. But no, apparently, I guess right before she did a force bubble.
Yep.
yeah.
Okay, right before, and then she floated out in that bubble. And the whole time that we're looking at her, you don't see the bubble.
Nope.
You see her doing this, but you see her cold.
Yes.
So her bubble doesn't protect against temperature.
No,
okay.
it's right above the skin.
Okay,
So the ice
so
and shit
the-
wasn't
the-
actually touching her.
Got it. Okay, so we're trying to explain it for you, Last Jedi here, and she floats back in. But then why does nobody fucking say anything?
Also,
It's like, yeah, okay, cool.
Yeah.
What's up?
Also, when she knocked on the glass and they opened the door, there was no like compression room. The moment that door completely opened into a vacuum, everyone standing on the other side was like, "No!"
All right. Yes,
I brought that up. Alex said it's because they have.
no, I said because they have a shield over there. But
Only
then wait.
their shield.
But then
works.
why did the shield not work for the missile
Only
that
their
slammed into the
shield
bridge?
works.
You
That's
know
all.
what? It does. It's not. No, that's not how. The door's open. It was completely open.
I
They
know.
showed some fog, and it was like, what? No, they would have just been like.
We've seen that in Star Trek before where
Yeah.
the bridge is
Yeah,
shielded,
emergency shield,
but we've
yeah.
not really seen that in Star Wars, so it
Yeah.
would have been nice for them to, kind of fix these things. But anyway, it was a scene that was ridiculous, that was a huge surprise. It was supposed to be a big reveal, but it felt a little cheap. It felt a little manipulative, especially when you have obviously Carrie Fisher has passed away. And when I first saw that, I was like, oh, this is how they take her out of the series. And while it was sad and I didn't like it and when it was so sudden, that's war. And I was thinking, okay,
Maybe use that as a spark.
that's how you do it. That's how you do it. But then all of a sudden she starts floating back in and she's Superman and goes back.
And I also thought of another thing. If it's emergency shielding that just went up,
Yeah.
how'd she get back in?
Yeah,
She would have just gone
'cause-
bonk right on the outside.
Jedi.
Yes, of course.
Jedi.
That's the answer to everything.
She was a Jedi. How was what? Wait a minute. How did
That's
she
how
learn
it was
how to do
last
this?
night, man. I was
How
like,
did
that-
she learn
what?
how to do this? She's
How?
completely untrained.
Yep.
Well, supposedly, after the movies, Luke found out she was force sensitive and trained her.
Is this
She
canon though?
I believe
Or was that
it is.
obliterated?
We don't know.
in canon?
Everything
Pretty
gets
sure it
obliterated all the time.
See,
Oh,
the
it might have been
film could have
obliterated. I
done
don't
a
know.
better job to set a lot of this stuff up.
And we-
Somebody could have said, well, she was, after she got up, and blasted a door open herself, when Finn or Poe is acting like an idiot and making a bunch of mistakes on the bridge, she blasts in. I mean, somebody could have said something to her afterwards like, wow, that was amazing. You truly are
They
the
just act
leader
like
of
it never
everybody.
happened.
You truly are our prophet or whatever. And
No.
then she shuts them down immediately and says, it's just a simple trick I learned from my brother.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what
It's
I
a
mean?
line like
Because
that.
she
One
loves
line.
self-deprecating humor and she likes to say what you looking at me for? Follow him. That kind of stuff.
Oh, we
That's
also
what
have to
he
point
said.
out that
Yeah.
Admiral
Oh, no,
Akbar
like
died
after
like that.
he did get emotional.
let's give a moment of silence to Admiral Akbar, who nobody gave a shit about.
Who never did anything.
And as he floated out,
It's a trap.
it's a trap.
Greatest
Poor
war
Akbar.
general
Damn,
strategist.
man, that fucking sucks.
He just
This
died
is-
like
Why, Leia? Why didn't you put your bubble over you
Yes.
and fucking Akbar?
Save
For the
him.
love of God. All right. Anyway.
But then you have the so-called Mary Poppins moment. And I think what people are having an issue with a lot of the time, when I'm seeing this described, is they're having trouble understanding what happened. They're thinking she just put her hand out and flies like Superman to go to the ship. No. Last I heard, flying like Superman was not a Jedi ability. Jumps, maybe, but flying like Superman, levitation, it's getting kind of borderline there. The way I'm interpreting that, and I guess it'll take probably the novelization months from now to be able to say for sure, is that what she was doing was a force grab, like pulling something to you with the force. But you're in zero gravity, you have the whole issue of mass, momentum, inertia, and all of that, and the equal and opposite reactions, that if she, a very small person, is compared to a very large ship, and she exerts a pull against that ship, instead of it moving towards her, she will move towards it. And essentially what she's doing is she's using the force to essentially pull the ship, and in doing so, it is instead pulling her back into the ship. For me, that is one of the few instances of using the force and physics at the same time in a way that to me actually made sense in Star Wars. And instead people are like, oh my god, she's Kara Zor-El! Just stop. Stop. Think the scene through, please.
You mean the last scene was fucking awesome? The last scene where she should have died in space and yet used the force to pull herself back to the ship? That's fucking cool. Like, the complaints in The Last Jedi, I just don't understand. I don't get them. Like, this is crazy to me with the Star Wars fan base. People who claim to be hardcore fans, right? Now, I think you're a fan of Star Wars no matter what. If you like Star Wars, whether it's the original movies, the first 6 movies, which are the prequels and the originals, or if you like all the movies, like me, doesn't matter, you're a true Star Wars fan. Fuck off with that true fan shit. But I'm gonna say this. The ones who seem to be ripping into Last Jedi, frankly, may not know what the hell the point of this movie was. The point and theme of this movie is loss, is sacrifice, is deconstructing the entire foundation on what Star Wars has established. The Jedi are always good. The Sith are always evil. The rebellion is always righteous and noble no matter what happens. The First Order / the Empire are always the villains. Now, the movies that tried to play with this dichotomy, and I do gotta emphasize they tried to do this, was the prequels. But if we're going to look at what's probably done it better, I would say Episode 8 has done the whole Shades of Grey motif better than the prequel. Because at least in this movie, comparatively speaking, I don't gotta go to a freaking TV show to really help enforce the depth and the stories that were trying to be told in the prequels. I will say I like the prequels, but comparing them to something like The Last Jedi and saying that those are better than The Last Jedi is foolish, to be honest. This movie really is summed up by Luke Skywalker vehemently, is shown very well in Luke Skywalker's anger and bitterness to the Jedi Order of the prequel era, where he said, in their hubris, their arrogance, they allowed Darth Sidious to rise and destroyed themselves. And basically led to the rise of Darth Vader. That fear he has, that anger he has of the old Jedi Order. He simply says, if you look at the history of the Jedi Order, it is a history of failure. Which, if you look at the Clone Wars TV show, he's not wrong. There's an entire episode arc where the Jedi Council accuse Ahsoka Tano of committing a terrorist attack on the temple with zero evidence, exile her without a train of thought, which just led Anakin a step closer to the dark side. So, Luke has a damn good reason for questioning the light and the dark are the only ways to view the Force. Whereas Luke looks at it more as there is only the Force. There is only becoming one at peace with the Force. And because he has viewed the Force in this non-black and white way, and he sees the Force more clearly, not in the Jedi or the Sith way of thinking, he sees this as too big a burden for someone like himself to handle anymore. He's frankly saying, I'm too old for this shit. I have had enough. I tried to rebuild the Jedi Order. I failed to rebuild the Jedi Order. I caused my own order to be destroyed. I failed Ben Solo. I created the next Darth Vader in my own stupidity. Like the way these scenes are played out. That flashback scene that Ben Solo described when Luke tried to kill him. Or he perceived that Luke was going to kill him. And the scene where Luke actually described what really happened that night. It's tragic. You look at Luke in that movie and you just pity this man. Because as Luke was about to stop himself from killing Ben Solo, that was the very moment Ben Solo woke up in horror. And the way Hamill delivers his line by the time I was about to stop, I only saw the eyes of a frightened boy whose master had failed him. It really just hits you right there. And some fans may go, betrayal of Luke! Luke would never do that! Allow me to clue you in on a little secret. Maybe Luke from 30 years ago wouldn't have tried to kill Ben Solo. But you gotta remember, he was still pretty idealistic. When you're an idealist, you tend to not make rash decisions, I feel. You try to do what you feel is morally right. Whereas when you're an older and cynical person, you might act on your own cynicism and anger and fear rather than rationality. And the thing, if you really deconstruct that scene again, I really can't wait for a goddamn DVD release of this so I could really break down this scene and describe why it just works. The fact that you see Luke ignite his lightsaber from his point of view, it's in his hand, and he's about to do it, and then he's thinking about it. And then he has this look of, I can't do this. He's my nephew. He's my nephew. He's a boy. He's a child. I can't hurt him. I can't do this. Within that moment of rediscovering who he was as a man, of who that Luke Skywalker is, that was the moment Ben Solo looked and saw a crazy old man about to kill him. And if you don't think that adds a layer of depth and tragedy to Luke Skywalker as a character, then I don't know what else I can say. Honestly, I love The Last Jedi. I'm probably going to be one of those Star Wars fans that defends this movie to his core and really try to delve deep into analyzing this movie and the themes and the lessons that it's trying to teach you as a moviegoer, what it's trying to expand upon within the Star Wars universe. I guess that's all I gotta say. Live long and prosper and have a nice day.